Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1210A, and today's date is February 21st, 2017, and the title of the episode is, Here Are Multiple Signs That Indicate That the U.S. is in a Recession. Let's get into the economic collapse financial news. Now, out in Greece, they're trying to convince us that they found some type of solution to their debt problem. And right now we see that institutions agree on a common position, said Shaeuble. And he stresses that it's in principle. So really, they didn't solve anything right at this point. The German finance minister says that the real problem in Greece is not the debt. Now, of course, it's always not the debt. They always blame it on something else. They're saying it's the reforms, not enough austerity, not enough people being laid off, not enough of people giving up things. Well, no, the problem is the debt. I mean, if we go back in time and we saw what happened with Goldman Sachs, where they orchestrated this entire debt deal where Goldman Sachs actually made off, and Greece was put in a position of a complete disaster, and the people had to pay for this, and it put the entire Greek economy into a collapse scenario where unemployment went up by 25% or so. Youth unemployment went up over 40%, and it was a complete disaster in Greece. And we can see as Greece continually accepted more and more debt and they implemented austerity, the situation didn't improve. It actually got worse because debt is the problem. And the country had to then sell off their actual assets for pennies on the dollar to these creditors. But this is what central banks actually want. And we can see right now in Australia, well, they're coming to a place where the United States was back in 2008. And they're looking to help the everyday person with purchasing real estate. Now, the Australian Parliament member Andrew Broad wants banks to accept 0% down loans. And this new proposal is called a creative idea. Now, I don't know what's creative about this. Zero down, bringing in subprime people. This was already tried in the U.S. And what happened? It was a complete disaster. So 0% down loans depend on several things. Home prices keep rising. Buyers keep their jobs. And interest rates, mortgage payments, rise lower than income. And what we're seeing is that this is not really happening. But what we can tell is that these central bankers, they're trying to keep the system alive while everything is contracting. And remember something very important about all of this. The central bankers can create money, currency, I should say. The central bankers can use covert QE all over the place, buy treasury bonds, pump up the stock market, keep the illusion alive, have the government, fake the statistical numbers. They can do all that. It sounds great. But the heart of the economy, that doesn't reflect on what they're doing. The heart of the economy shows what's really happening. And this is the problem of the central bank. They could never get people to spend their money, their currency. No matter what they do with the statistics, no matter what they do with the stock market, no matter how much they print up, it makes no difference. That's their biggest downfall. And when the consumer stops spending, because you have to remember it's like 71% of GDP, once the consumer stops spending, this is a problem because this whole entire system is based on people spending money, taking out loans, buying things. And we can see just in retail that this has taking a toll because people don't have the jobs they had before. Wages are declining. People don't have the full-time job. They're taking part-time jobs. We see Macy's, they're going to close another 34 stores because profits are falling nearly 13%. Because sales are declining. Walmart, their sales are declining. They just had a miss. Toys R Us, they laid off up to 15% in their headquarters. Why? Because they're struggling financially. The traffic is not there. Sales aren't there. This is why we see retail stores closing left and right. Yes, all these stores sell their products online. They all have websites. They all have a presence online. But the problem is the people aren't spending the money. This is why they're looking to push universal basic income. Now, of course, this is going to fail. Just like when the gas prices came down, they thought, ooh, everyone's going to have this extra money. They're going to go out to retail and spend like crazy. That didn't happen. Because what was happening is people were like, okay, I can fill my car up for, less currency, and I'm not doing anything else. Because you have to remember, people who've lost their job, people who've been in this situation for a very long time, they realize that things could get worse. They know what it feels like not to have a paycheck, not to have the funds. And many people don't have the funds to go out and spend. But things are continually moving up. We see auto insurance. Well, auto insurance rates, they have soared nearly 20% in the past several years. We see health insurance has soared just in the past couple years. And this is going to continue. I mean, if you look around, you can see food, well, that's rising once again. We see insurance, well, we know that's moving up. But people's paychecks, what people are earning, that is declining. This is a major, major problem. Now, despite the soaring soft survey data from around the world, U.S. manufacturing and services PMI printed a disappointing drop in February. Now, when we look at the hard data, we can see all the decline since Trump's election. And the soft data hope is fading fast. Now, manufacturing dropped from 55 to 54.3. Services slump from 55 to 53.9. And we can see that things are not going well in the economy. I mean, here are some signs that we are in a recession right now. Auto loan delinquencies, well, they have surged to their highest since 2008. And this is coming from the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. April 2016 study found that nearly half of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. A lot of other studies have pegged that number even higher. House flipping accounted for 6.1% of home sales in the U.S. last year. This is the highest share of the housing market since 2006, when that rate was 7.1% of sales. The rest of the sales are coming from foreign investors, hedge funds, and investment companies. The New York Federal Reserve reported in August of 2016 that subprime borrowers, those with a credit score of 660, are getting new $1,000 credit cards at an alarming rate. Nearly half of all card closures in 2010 and 2011 belong to borrowers with credit scores of 660 and below. The Federal Housing Administration, mortgage delinquencies jumped in the fourth quarter of 2016 for the first time since 2006. And it spiked to 9%, up from 8.3% in the previous quarter. Student loan debt has surpassed $1.3 trillion. This is the second largest category of debt behind mortgages. And the students can't pay them back. They don't have jobs. According to a study by the John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation, more than half of Americans, 52%, can't afford their homes. The number of U.S. bankruptcies filing by consumers rose 5.4% in January. And what we're seeing right now is that we are in a recession heading towards a collapse. HSBC right now, well, their report that was released back in September 2016, well, it proves right now to be 110% correct. What do I mean? This morning, the company reports an 82% drop in year-over-year earnings. This is absolutely awful. And what we're seeing right now is that the situation in HSBC is not good at all. This is one of the biggest misses of the year. And they reported this back in September 2016, and it looks like, well, things have not improved whatsoever. The NASDAQ right now is more overbought than at the 2000 bubble peak. The S&P 500 tech sector has gone a record 14 days without a single loss. And the NASDAQ 100 index is now at its most overbought since 1992, most notably more overbought than at the peak of the dot-com bubble in 2000. So what does this tell us? It tells us there's a problem, because we've seen these signs before. It means the bubble is going to pop. And if you're looking for another reason to get bearish on U.S. equities, try this. The ratio of equity to bond returns is approaching all-time highs in data going back 29 years. And we can see at this point that the situation right now, well, we're reaching a point at the top of the bubble where everything is now going to start heading the opposite way. And it's going to gain speed as we go throughout this year. We see Russia, well, they have been buying gold. They bought 1 million ounces in January. Now in December, they didn't buy any. In January, they're looking at the situation saying, okay, we need to ramp this up. We need to purchase more gold. So what are we seeing right now? We're seeing the entire system that was created under the Obama administration after the 2008 crisis, where everything should have just completely imploded on itself. Well, it was pumped up, and the illusion narrative was pushed on the American people by the Obama administration, through the central bank, through the corporate media, to convince us that the economy was doing very well. They altered calculations. They covertly used money printing. They did whatever they had to do to keep the illusion alive that the economy was the best that we've ever seen. But we know what happens with all illusions. We know what happens to all lies. Eventually, they start to fall apart. And remember what I said early in the report. The one thing the central bank cannot do is to get people to spend. This is why we see retail contracting at an alarming rate. This is why we're going to see the housing market implode. GDP, unless they manipulate it, because it is a statistical number, well, guess what? It's going to go into the negative range. It's been in the negative range. And what we're going to see is that this economy has never recovered. The economy is doomed, and we are in a recession now, heading into a collapse scenario. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.